Welcome back. This is Showdown. I'm joined here in the Sky News studio by economist and Australian Financial Review columnist Christopher Joye. Thanks for your company.
Hi, Peter.
And joining us out of Perth is the Assistant Shadow Treasurer Matthias Cormann. Senator Cormann, thanks very much for your company as well.
Good to be here.
I'll come to you in a moment, Senator, but I just wanted to first up ask our resident economist here what you think about the fact that the Reserve Bank didn't move on interest rates today. Some people were predicting they would, most were saying that they would not. You were saying that they wouldn't. You were right. They have made a lot of moves previously. Where does this leave us? Where does this sort of project, I guess, between now and the next election?
Well, Peter, it wasn't really a surprise. 19 of the 20 economists expected rates to remain on hold.
Who was the wrong one?
My good buddy Stephen Koukoulas, who was previously Julia Gillard's economic advisor.
Oh, what a shock. What a shock. So Gillard's former economic advisor got it wrong.
Kiki, who's probably watching right now, has been egging the RBA on relentlessly. And I think he's forecasting a 2.75% cash rate, which means another 75 basis points of cuts. But the bottom line is the economy is growing, based on the latest numbers, at an above-trend pace. Unemployment's low. Inflation's in the target range. So the statement from the RBA today was actually a little hawkish. The Aussie dollar hit 106 US cents on the back of it. Bond yields increased.
Manufacturers will be happy about that.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing was they gave no sign whatsoever that there'll be any further cuts. It's not to say there won't be, but it's sort of watch and wait right now.
All right, Chris, hold that thought, because I want to come to Matthias Cormann now and talk not just economics, which is your portfolio area as Assistant Shadow Treasurer and Shadow Spokesperson for Financial Services, but Senator, I also want to start by asking you about the opinion polls. You must be absolutely quaking in your boots. The primary vote for the Labor Party's gone from 28% to 33%. Julia Gillard's on holiday. She can't do much better than that.
Well, as you say, Julia Gillard has been on holiday for the last week. Maybe the Labor Party needs to do itself a favour and do all of us a favour, do the country a favour and ask her to go on long service leave. Better still, maybe she should just call an election and let the Australian people decide on the fate of her government. I think that she would be very, very popular in the opinion polls if she did that.
Yeah, but I mean, you must be worried. I mean, if she can go up by 5 points when she goes on holiday, what could she achieve if she actually does a bit of work?
Well, just imagine what she could... No, in the contrary. Like, when she's working, that is obviously not good for the Labor Party and not good for the country. So the best thing for Julia Gillard actually to do for all of us is for her to go on extended holiday and maybe just, leave the position altogether and call an election.
Yeah, all this talk about, the fact that it was the Olympics and it was the fact that she was on holidays. I'm not sure that the IOC will let the Olympics run indefinitely. I'm not sure the residents of Port Douglas will let her stay there indefinitely either. So she's going to be back on deck soon if she isn't already. We'll see how the polls react to that in the weeks ahead. Senator, can I get your reaction to this whole issue of interest rates not going down? Look, at one level, that's a sign, I guess, that, as Christopher Joye says, that the Reserve Bank feels fairly strong and confident about the economy. By the same token, when interest rates go down, that might be a show of weakness in the economy, but it's good politically for the government, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, people like paying a little bit less for their mortgages.
Well, I mean, and here's the point. I mean, the interest rates that matter really are the lending rates that are charged by the banks. I mean, obviously, the official cash rate, which is at 3.5%, is an important economic indicator. But lending rates, bank lending rates that are charged out to small business and to families on their mortgages, of course, are on average higher than what they were under the previous government. The reason being because the gap between the official cash rate and bank lending rates has progressively increased over the last 4 or 5 years. Because every time when the official cash rate went down, or often when the official cash rate went down rather, bank lending rates went down by less. When the cash rate went up, bank lending rates went up by more. On occasions, banks have increased their lending rates without any movement in the official cash rate. And of course, you've got to remember, in the global context, the official cash rate in Australia is still comparatively high. I mean, in the US, in the UK, it's been hovering around 0% for some time now. There's been quantitative easing, they've been printing money. I mean, in the wake of excessive fiscal stimulus in Australia, of course, after having reduced the cash rate down to 3% some years ago, the Reserve Bank increased it very rapidly back up to 4.75%. So, I mean, clearly by global comparison, it is still comparatively high, but in the context of the Australian economy, clearly, it wasn't a surprise that there wasn't any movement today.
It's always a lot easier, though, for central banks to reduce interest rates when government spending is under control. control. Your side of Parliament is committed to the NDIS and doing it out of consolidated revenue, which basically means that you'll be trying to find ways to spend an extra $7.5 billion on disability services every year. That's going to put upward pressure on interest rates, isn't it?
Well, I mean, if you just look, I mean, this government inherited a budget position with no government net debt, with a $22 billion surplus, and of course, in 4.5 years, turned that around into a situation where we had $174 billion worth of accumulated deficits. We're heading for $145 billion worth of government net debt. And the key figure to focus on here, Peter, is that the last year of the Howard government, the government was collecting net interest payments of more than $1 billion. The Gillard government is planning to spend nearly $30 billion in net interest payments, spending nearly $30 billion in net interest payments over the... Yeah, well, I mean, excessive, wasteful spending, a lot of dysfunction, incompetence that has ultimately hit the budget bottom line. I mean, clearly, I mean, you were talking about the official cash rate before. I mean, at the time when the GFC hit, in Australia, there was still scope, if the Reserve Bank thought there was a need for further stimulus, there was still scope for monetary policy to do more of the heavy lifting, which would have meant that we would have ended up with less debt.
But the sort of wasteful spending you're talking about, the NBN, which you're committed to continuing to roll out, paid parental leave, hang on a second, yours is a more generous one than them. NDIS, well, hang on a sec, they're going to bring the states in and expect them to fund it, whereas you're going to pay for it entirely out of consolidated revenue. There's a lot of money being spent on both sides if you look at your promises as well as what they've done.
Well, I mean, not quite. I mean, if you look at the record over the last 4.5–5 years, I mean, you look at the overpriced school halls, you look at the billions of dollars in pink bats. I mean, in fact, the government was wasting $1 billion plus in putting pink bats into people's roofs, and then was spending about the same amount taking those pink bats out of people's roofs again. I mean, this was the sort of fiscal stimulus that we call wasteful spending that was happening by the Labor Party. I mean, $89 billion worth of fiscal stimulus in a very short period of time, which of course at the time forced the Reserve Bank to put the brakes on through monetary policy.
I'm getting attacked on Twitter by your fan club, Matthias Cormann, for having a go at you. Everyone out there in Twitterland, everyone out there in Twitterland, they've got to realise it's called Devil's Advocate. Come on, give me a break. Christopher Joye, let me go to you though. I mean, you are an economist. You take a strong interest in these things. What do you think of the messaging? I'm really talking rather than the policy itself. The messaging politically by the coalition in terms of how it sells its economic credentials.
I think the messaging in 2011 and 2012 has been very poor by the coalition. I think the coalition did everything possible to amplify the negativity and pessimism around the Australian economy in late 2011 and the first quarter of this year. And that, I think, collectively with the really negative sentiment in the community, helped jawbone the RBA into an unusually large spate of rate cuts. So we've had those 125 basis points worth of cuts. And that's played...
Are they good politically for the government?
It's man from heaven for the ALP. I mean, this has been a deliberate strategy by the ALP to run ostensibly a tight fiscal policy and do everything possible to try and use moral suasion to convince the RBA to slash rates. So they have now home loan rates, for the record, are well below historical averages today. Small business rates are well below historical averages.
Does anyone care though? Because the government's in so much trouble no matter what, aren't they?
Well, I think it's a good position to be in, to have home loan, small business and corporate lending rates all well below their historical averages, and the economy growing, according to the data, at an above-trend pace, and unemployment at pretty low levels, and inflation also at historically very low levels. So I think the advocates of the ALP are right to point to the surface-level economic characteristics of the country, which are incredibly strong.
All right, hold that thought. Matthias Cormann, I want to come back to you. I want to talk to you in a moment about direct foreign investment, which Tony Abbott has obviously been big on in the last week with releasing that discussion paper with the Nationals. But before getting to that, Christopher Joye, economist, I think it'd be fair to say conservative-leaning economist, he's had a bit of a crack at not just the coalition, but he's pretty much targeted the problems on the coalition side in the sphere of how they sell their economic message since you took over your portfolio of Shadow Assistant Treasurer.
It's a free world. I mean, I welcome the discussion. That's great. I mean, obviously, seriously, from our point of view, we are very concerned that this current government has spent too much, which has meant that they've had to tax too much, and a lot of ad hoc tax grabs, which over time will have a bad impact on our international competitiveness. Productivity growth has slowed down to a trickle. And of course, from our point of view, we think that we should have a government that spends less, that lives within its means, so we can tax less, and we want to have a government government that actually focuses on making Australia the most competitive internationally it possibly can be, because quite frankly, in the context of global economic storm clouds that are still on the horizon, we need to actually focus on strengthening the economy, which is something that we don't think the current government has been doing. Quite to the contrary, they've been putting additional lead into our saddlebag. On top of all the taxes, of course, we had more than 18,000 new regulations.
Yeah, all right. So I've let you get out every single talking point. I've let you get out every single
talking point. These are not talking points, these are the facts.
All right, well, let me ask you about something else. I want to move specifically to this idea of foreign investment. Now, you would concede, wouldn't you, Senator, that this is a difficult subject for the coalition, because there are quite different views between the Conservative side and the Conservative Liberals, I suppose, and the different type of Conservative Nationals, yeah?
Well, I mean, let's be very clear. Foreign investment has been very important for our economic development in the past. It will be very important for our economic development in the future. In Australia, we don't have enough capacity to generate the capital we need to reach our full economic potential domestically. So clearly, we will continue to rely on foreign investment. And in fact, we strongly welcome foreign investment where it is not contrary to the national interest. And that is, of course, the rub. We do have a process through which the national interest is assessed. That is, of course, through the Foreign Investment Review Board, and that is quite appropriate. What you've seen in recent days is the coalition put out a number of proposals to make some of these processes more transparent, make sure that we've got better facts and better information on the table so that people across Australia can have confidence in the processes through which the national interest is assessed. Now, I mean, we think that's an important part of it. Ultimately, you need to make sure that there is confidence and support from across Australia for what is happening in this space.
All right, Senator Matthias Cormann, we appreciate you joining us as always on Showdown. Joining us out of Perth, that is Senator Matthias Cormann, the Assistant Shadow Treasurer as well as Spokesperson for Financial Services. Thanks very much for your company. Stay with us. We're going to take a commercial break.